Number 3 girls stand in court to defend their single dad. Then the judge started crying. The entire courtroom fell into stunned silence when 3 trembling little girls stepped away from the crowded benches and stood shoulder to shoulder in front of the judge. Before a single lawyer could speak another word, the oldest daughter clutched her sister's shaking hands, looked straight toward the bench with tears streaming down her face, and declared that if anyone was going to take their father away, they would have to take all 3 daughters with him. Even the reporters lowered their cameras. The attorneys stopped writing. The courtroom held its breath as a heartbreaking truth began to unfold that no one had expected to hear. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a thoughtful comment, share this story with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our community where every story reminds us that compassion can still change lives. The man standing at the defense table was named Garrett Holloway. His gray jacket had clearly been worn for years, and the sleeves had been carefully stitched where they had once torn. His tired face carried the weight of countless sleepless mornings rather than the marks of any criminal. He was a single father raising 3 daughters after losing his wife, Meredith, to a sudden illness 8 years earlier. Since that devastating day, Garrett had lived every hour for his children. He packed lunches before sunrise, braided hair with clumsy fingers that slowly became surprisingly skilled, helped with homework after exhausting shifts, and learned how to comfort 3 grieving little hearts while hiding his own heartbreak. Life had never been easy, but Garrett never complained. He worked 2 jobs, skipped meals whenever money became tight, and quietly sold nearly everything of value he owned to keep the girls in the same school because he believed stability was the one gift he could still give them. His daughters, Callie, Brenna, and Tessa, grew up understanding sacrifice long before they understood luxury. They knew their father always claimed he had already eaten whenever dinner was scarce. Only years later did they realize he had simply wanted them to have enough. Despite Garrett's unwavering devotion, tragedy seemed determined to test him again and again. One rainy afternoon, while delivering construction supplies during his lunch break to earn extra income, he witnessed a terrible traffic collision. Smoke poured from one of the vehicles as frightened bystanders froze in panic. Garrett never stopped to think about the danger. He rushed forward, pulled an unconscious elderly driver from the wreckage moments before flames engulfed the car, and stayed until emergency crews arrived. What Garrett didn't know was that another vehicle involved belonged to a wealthy businessman named Victor Langston. During the confusion, an expensive briefcase filled with confidential financial documents disappeared. Security footage captured Garrett picking up the briefcase before running toward the burning vehicle. The recording ended before showing that he had placed the briefcase safely inside an ambulance while trying to save the injured driver. Days later, investigators searching for the missing documents questioned Garrett. The ambulance crew had changed shifts, records were incomplete, and the briefcase had somehow vanished before reaching the hospital. Suspicion quickly fell upon the struggling single father who desperately needed money. Rumors spread faster than facts. Neighbors whispered. Employers quietly let him go. Some people who had once praised him for his kindness now looked away whenever he passed. Without steady work, unpaid bills piled up. The landlord threatened eviction. Friends who had promised support slowly disappeared. Garrett refused to tell his daughters how desperate things had become, but children often notice what adults try hardest to hide. They saw him pretending not to worry whenever another collection notice arrived. They noticed how often he repaired old shoes instead of buying new ones. They heard him pacing through the small apartment every afternoon after believing they had already fallen asleep during naps on weekends. When formal charges were finally filed accusing Garrett of theft and evidence tampering, the entire town seemed ready to believe the worst. Headlines focused on the missing documents rather than the rescue that had saved a man's life. Public opinion became the true enemy long before the trial ever began. The girls refused to accept what strangers were saying about the father they knew. Callie, only 15 but wise beyond her years, gathered every photograph she could find showing Garrett volunteering at food drives, helping elderly neighbors repair fences, coaching youth baseball without accepting a penny, and organizing holiday meal deliveries for struggling families. Brenna carefully collected handwritten thank you letters from people Garrett had quietly helped over the years. Young Tessa filled a notebook with memories she never wanted anyone to forget, describing how her father tucked them into bed every afternoon after school naps when they were younger, celebrated birthdays even during difficult financial times, and never missed a school performance despite working exhausting shifts. Their attorney appreciated the evidence but gently explained that character alone might not erase the legal accusations. Facts would determine the verdict. Even so, the girls continued gathering every possible detail because they believed truth was more than paperwork. Truth lived inside the countless ordinary moments that revealed who a person truly was. The courtroom overflowed on the morning of the hearing. Reporters expected another routine case involving alleged theft. Instead, they witnessed a family fighting for its future with nothing but honesty and unwavering love. Witnesses described Garrett rushing into danger without hesitation. Firefighters confirmed that his actions had almost certainly saved a life. Medical staff testified that Garrett never left the injured man's side until professionals took over. Yet none of it answered the question of what had happened to the missing briefcase. The prosecution argued that financial desperation created motive. Garrett admitted he had been overwhelmed by debt. He admitted fearing eviction. He admitted feeling exhausted and hopeless. But he never admitted to stealing because he hadn't. As the testimony continued, Garrett remained calm despite knowing that every sentence could determine whether he would return home to his daughters that afternoon or face years behind bars. Then something unexpected happened. During a short recess, the girls quietly approached their attorney. They had made a decision that no one had suggested. When proceedings resumed, permission was requested for each daughter to address the court. The room became strangely silent. Callie spoke first. Her voice shook, but her words carried remarkable strength. She explained that her father had spent years teaching them that doing the right thing mattered even when nobody noticed. She described mornings when Garrett walked miles to work after giving them the bus fare. She remembered afternoons when he smiled through unbearable exhaustion simply because he wanted them to believe everything would be okay. Brenna followed, holding several faded birthday cards Garrett had written over the years. Every card contained the same promise that no matter how difficult life became, they would always face tomorrow together. She explained that a man who devoted every breath to protecting his daughters could never deliberately destroy another family for money. Finally, little Tessa stepped forward. She carried only a worn photograph. It showed Garrett holding all three girls at a community picnic just months after their mother's funeral. His smile looked fragile, but his arms held them tightly as though promising never to let go. Tessa looked toward the judge with tears filling her eyes. She explained that every afternoon after school, their father asked about kindness before asking about grades. He believed good hearts mattered more than perfect report cards. She said she didn't understand complicated laws, but she understood what safety felt like, and safety was every time her father hugged them after another hard day. Then she whispered the words that no one in the courtroom would ever forget. She said that if the court believed her father deserved punishment for saving someone's life, then she hoped people would never stop saving strangers anyway. She added that losing him would mean losing the only parent they had left, and she could not imagine a world where kindness became something people feared because it might be misunderstood. Tears quietly rolled down faces throughout the courtroom. Even members of the prosecution lowered their eyes. The judge removed his glasses and paused for a long moment. Before he could continue, a court officer hurried into the room carrying newly recovered evidence. A maintenance worker cleaning an ambulance storage facility had discovered a locked emergency compartment that had not been inspected after the accident months earlier. Inside sat the missing briefcase exactly where Garrett had placed it while helping paramedics treat the injured victims. The contents were untouched. Security records confirmed the compartment had remained sealed ever since the day of the rescue. Every accusation collapsed in an instant. The courtroom erupted with quiet gasps. Garrett had told the truth from the beginning. The businessman whose documents had gone missing immediately stood and apologized publicly. He admitted allowing assumptions to replace patience and promised to correct every false statement he had made. The prosecutor formally requested dismissal of all charges. The judge granted the motion. Before concluding the hearing, the judge spoke with visible emotion. He admitted that courts exist to protect justice, but justice becomes strongest when people refuse to judge one another before every fact is known. Looking toward Garrett's daughters, he confessed that their courage had reminded everyone present why integrity cannot always be measured by evidence alone. Sometimes the character built over an entire lifetime deserves to be heard before conclusions are reached. As Garrett embraced his daughters, very few dry eyes remained in the courtroom. Reporters who had arrived expecting scandal instead documented extraordinary forgiveness. The headlines the following afternoon no longer described an accused thief. They celebrated a devoted father, 3 courageous daughters, and a courtroom that witnessed the triumph of truth over assumption. The story spread far beyond the town. Garrett was offered steady employment by several local business owners who admired both his honesty and resilience. Community members organized a fundraiser to help the family recover from the financial losses caused by the false accusations. People who had once doubted him knocked on his door to apologize. Garrett accepted every apology with quiet grace, explaining that bitterness would only steal more time from the life he wanted to rebuild with his girls. Months later, Garrett volunteered once again at community events, proving that hardship had not hardened his heart. Callie began mentoring younger students facing family struggles. Brenna organized donation drives for single-parent households. Tessa started writing letters to children in hospitals because she believed everyone deserved words of hope during difficult days. Their pain had transformed into compassion, and their compassion inspired countless others. Before we reach the end of this journey, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment telling us whether you believe a person's lifetime of kindness should matter when others rush to judge them, and share a moment when someone gave you a second chance that changed your life. Garrett often reminded his daughters that life would never promise fairness, but it would always offer the chance to choose kindness over anger, truth over convenience, and forgiveness over resentment. Those choices became the foundation of a family that refused to let hardship define its future. Long after the courtroom emptied and the headlines faded, people continued remembering the image of 3 brave sisters standing together for the father who had spent his entire life standing for them. Their courage proved that love speaks with a strength no accusation can silence, and that hope has a remarkable way of finding its voice when hearts refuse to surrender. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May this story remind us all that the truth may be delayed, compassion may be tested, and good people may sometimes be misunderstood, but love, integrity, and hope have a way of shining through when we need them most.